Take a look at the employee records themselves. We've got our selected employees in the bottom left hand corner. If I click the employee option, it takes me to the first of those employees. You can click the next button to go to the next person in the selection. We're now on count 2 of 4 in the number of employees, 3 of 4, and 4 and 4, and so on. This is where we actually set up the employee data. Some of this information will come from the Coins HR system, and it's automatically populated. When somebody gets added to the Coins system, it will get added to the GaneTime system. So this is a case of maintaining it, checking it, making sure it's correct. There are certain items on the GaneTime system that can be varied that aren't on the Coins system. These are things like the employee's shift pattern, their expected clock-ins, and their payroll rules, as it were, which rules they apply to them in terms of calculating paid hours. This is determined by the sequence ID. Depending on which option you choose, the 8, 10, 12 represents the number of hours that can be worked before overtime is accrued. The standard Qatar rule will work on a basic 8 hours per day. So if an employee works 9 hours on a normal shift, that will dictate that they get 8 hours at basic and 1 hour at overtime rates. The rules will calculate how much overtime and at what rate that is determined. But this is the basic employee setup, used for reporting and filtering the database using the selection screen. They can be configured to be as variable as you require, but we need to keep it in step with the Coins database wherever possible, so that data changes only need to be made on one database. This is really a reporting tool once the setup's maintained. Each of these fields is a user-definable drop-down list. We can add new locations, new trades, as and when they arise within the business. If people move to a different location, the location will be changed, and if they work on different rules or under a different timekeeper, this is the employee record where we can set these parameters. The include overtime on the right hand side is just a yes/no indicator, and that indicates whether this employee can accrue overtime or whether his hours are just paid at basic rate. Again, it's a payroll rule setting, so if there's a query with payroll, check the include overtime is set correctly, and check that the payroll, the labour law rule is set correctly. Qatar is the default setting. The dates tab for GaneTime this shows you the employee's start date and what their current pay period is and what their previous pay period was. Their pay type M31 means that their payroll period runs for the entire month, and that's calendar month based, so that all dates in February are in the current pay period. The previous pay period was the end of the 31st of January, and it's this pay type which will determine how many hours this employee will get paid for the period. If you have different working rules, different working sites that pay weekly, this can be accommodated in GaneTime, but all the QDVC employees are set up as monthly, paid up to the last day of the month. Payroll sign-off is another variable that we'll meet later on when we discuss worked hours, but in essence, once an employee is signed off, then that period is closed off and normal data entry is not permitted because the hours have been transferred to the payroll system. But it's always worthwhile keep an eye on these dates to make sure they are in step with the current period that you're working on. The employee shift is basically how GaneTime is set up to accept times for this employee. GaneTime can support clocking employees and people that don't have to clock, but you can record a start and end time against their shifts. This particular shift pattern, if you want to see what shift pattern they're on, this is on a test shift pattern. If I click the adjust button, this will show me that this employee is expected to work between 8 and 5 o'clock 6 days a week. with Sunday being highlighted because that's the first day of the working week ordinarily, and Friday being blank because they're not expected to work on the Friday. You can still enter times for a Friday, but that will be treated as working on a rest day, and payroll rules will apply accordingly. If you are expected to work and you don't work, GaneTime will flag up that as an exception and say this employee has not turned up for work today. This is more applicable when you're using a clocking system where you're actually clocking in and out. For manual data entry, as we've been showing you, the rules still apply, particularly with working on non-contracted days and contracted days, but this is the shift pattern that the employee is working on. If the employee is not on the correct shift pattern, you can change the shift pattern. So we've got various standard shift patterns set up here. If I choose the LUCP office shift and click the adjust button, we can see that this is an 8 to 1800 shift pattern, so it's a different length of the day, but it's also got 2 rest days in there. So again, depending on which days the employee is supposed to work, you set the shift pattern accordingly. We've got a list of standard shift patterns that we've been given that have been set up. If the shift pattern that you require is not there, contact us, we'll set it up for you. It'll just be a simple case of saying, right, I want to move this person onto a different shift pattern, and you just update the shift pattern record, and that will take place from the day after you make the change. So it'll take effect from tomorrow. The reason it takes effect from tomorrow rather than today or in the past is because in a normal clocking environment, people will have already been clocking against shift patterns, and you will change the shift pattern for tomorrow onwards, which is the new pattern. The costing tab, not being used initially, but this is where we could set up the WBS codes to match the coins costing. We're not dealing with allocations initially, but this tab is left in there for future use. The use defined tab simply holds a field for the full name, which is used on reporting due to the length of the names in the database. If on the initial screen, or on the database, we've got the name at the top of the screen. We split this into a forename and surname. Because of character restrictions, we've got a full name field there that we can use on reporting purposes. The miscellaneous tab is just extra setup details if we need to change things from the norm, but these relate to clocking employees, so we won't be taking those into account at the moment. The main important tabs here are getting the employee analysis codes set up correctly, making sure the dates are in step, and making sure the employee is on the correct shift pattern. And that's basically all that it should be set up for an employee. The vast majority of this will come across from the coins system, and any changes that need to be made to the employee will probably be made over there, with the exception, as I say, of the shift pattern, which reflects what the employee is expected to work within the GaneTime scenario.